Welcome to episode 3 of the Global X Innovation Series, a 3-part breakdown of the investment opportunities shaping the future from the ground up. My name is Marc Jocum. I'm a Senior Product and Investment Strategist here at Global X ETFs, and today I'm joined by my colleague Billy Leung, a Senior Investment Strategist here at Global X, and we're going to be exploring a very interesting area in our final series where we're talking about robotics and humanoids and how it fits into this innovation ecosystem. So Billy, welcome. Now, let's talk about robotics first of all. Often portrayed as a bit of a dystopian, futuristic sort of scenario, but really adoption is already well on its way, right? And while it's underway, I'm keen to understand from your perspective, where are these meaningful developments from a commercial perspective, and what's really driving this demand, particularly for robotics?
Well, the thing is, it's actually everywhere now. I mean, if you consider one of the first parts where we're seeing humanoid robotics, we're actually seeing it in logistics and warehousing for obvious reasons. The key drive is that because it's much more efficient, there's labor issues with these areas, and these are actually helping that area as well. We're also seeing it in maybe more even technical aspects, even in healthcare, even in surgery. These are all that's involved in robotics, which are really helping in terms of precision and also the labor shortage again. What we really have to understand is that people are always concerned about robotics replacing human beings, but a lot of the actual use cases and a lot of actual demand is actually coming from areas where we actually don't have enough labor.
Interesting. So I want to double click on that because you talked about the industrial application, the factory side of things as well. But now there's talks, I guess, more recently around human robots, right? Or what we describe as humanoids per se. So can you explain, first of all, for the people at home, just the difference between robotics and humanoids, and really the potential for each of them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when you look at traditional humanoid automation robotics, or traditional automation robotics, these are, robots which have fixed tasks. So a good example would be, imagine a car manufacturer where you have different lines and they're doing different bits. And these machines or these robots are doing specific tasks.
Like on an assembly line,
exactly, specific task. And that's what they do the whole time. So what a humanoid robotics difference is that they actually, one, they have dexterity, fingers, which is very, very important. Number two, they actually can move around, which means that they're not defined by just one area, which also opens up to the possibility of applying AI, which means that they could actually have more application, upgraded application, and not just doing one single task.
Interesting. I'll come back to the AI bit in a second, but can you maybe explain what exactly goes into building one of these humanoid robots? Yes. Because there's a lot of key components, like you mentioned. There's technology side, there's components, but also I want to dive back into what role, because we spoke in the previous segment around artificial intelligence, what role does AI actually play in making these humanoid robotics actually work?
Good question. So I think if you just look at an entire humanoid robot, essentially you start from maybe, the head, where there's a lot of chips that's required as well to actually make it functional. We obviously have the chassis, which is essentially the body, but more importantly, we actually have a lot of the parts which actually allow it to move much more flexible, just like an actual human, as the name suggests. So these actuators are very strong parts of it. We also have to include the vision, it has to see things. So these includes cameras of very high quality. And just to sort of answer your question, this is exactly where AI comes in. It's because to put all these things together, you need very strong application of technology, understanding and flexibility of human nature, which is where AI comes in. And it just sort of melds all this together.
That makes a lot of sense. So, Billy, it might be a while before you and I maybe have a robot at home doing our chores and everything like that. So for everyday investors watching this, how can you actually get exposure to both the robotic side, but also the humanoids theme as well?
Well, I think it's also about finding each of those parts that we just looked at. In terms of actual what goes into a robot, we have to understand that there are actuator parts of the robot. We have to understand that there is cameras that goes into it, sensors that goes into it, and obviously the AI element and the chips element that goes into it. So again, there is different sort of parts of the value chain which investors can get exposure to actually get the full exposure to a humanoid robotics theme.
So Billy, sounds really exciting, I guess from an ETF perspective, because sometimes picking these individual names might be hard. They might be overseas as well and not domestic. What are some of the ETFs that investors can get exposure to, particularly the Global X ones, given we are a leader in the space?
Yeah, great. So I think the first one is probably what we talked about in terms of the traditional robotics and automation, which is where we have the Global X Robotics and Automation ETF, or ROBO. Nice. And this is where we capture the more traditional, fixed task, very, singular robotics automation sector. And this is a very nice, product for that. But then we also have that next frontier robotics, which is exactly what we were talking about in terms of humanoid robotics. We do also have the Global X Humanoid Robotics Robotics ETF, HUMD, which includes really the next generation robotics companies, which we talked about. Companies that are making the actuators, the chassis, the eyes, the ears, and even the head and the brain of the robotics. So these are the sort of the two that captures the old and the new, in my view.
Thank you so much, Billy. Sounds like a fascinating space. And thank you to everyone at home for joining for this final part of our innovation series. If you want to continue your journey to learn more about tech and innovation, jump to our website, www.globalxetfs.com.au/innovation. Thank you very much for your time.